Another advantage to virtualization is when you come to scale up. Let's see how Proxmox deals with scaling up an application server. Now let's pretend like this isn't running an installer and this is our normal application load. And we need to move this virtual server to a machine with more CPU resources and more available memory. Let's go to the Proxmox control panel. And we can see the CPU utilization and the memory utilization. We can also see that the assigned memory for this machine is quite low. Let's change that to 2 gigabytes and give it access to both CPU cores. We can see that the memory has updated down here, but that's not really true. Because if we look inside the machine, nothing really has changed. There's no second CPU, and there's no extra 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. To make this effective, this machine needs to restart. Remember that the machine that it's sitting on doesn't have these resources available. This is where things get to be pretty interesting. The way we're going to be able to free these resources, or to give this machine these extra resources, is to migrate it to another machine that's less utilized. So we'll pick a time where the server is not being actively used by very many users. We'll go into our Proxmox environment and go ahead and migrate the machine. We're not going to do an online migration because we want the machine to reboot. And it failed because it wants us to run the migration online. So we'll go ahead and run the migration online. And we can see that it is synchronizing the data. And you can see that the synchronization status is showing the file copies in process. But you'll notice that the data rate is only about 10 megabytes a second. The data rate is throttled down to prevent impacting the network during the bulk transfer of the environment. At this time, the server is actually still online on its host machine, and we don't want to impact the performance of our users any more than we have to. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and I'll show you what happens once it finishes. Alright, and the migration completed, and we can see that the cluster, or the virtual machine, is now running on node vhost 2. And I can open it up and see the specs on the machine. And I'll go ahead and open the console, and it should be pretty much done rebooting. And then we'll just open the task manager, and we can see that we have 2 CPUs and 2 gigs of RAM. So very easy scaling up. As far as I took a machine with 1 CPU and a half gig of RAM and scaled it up to a machine with 2 CPUs and 2 gigs of RAM in just a matter of about 10 minutes. And most of that was just the file copy. Downtime was about 5 minutes. So not bad.